So I think I mentioned before, when I saw these rosettes, I picked them out. I'm going to make a lot. Why am I making a lot? These are the two least interesting things in the sale, right? Not only that, but look at the condition of these things. What a mess. And I actually tuned that up a little bit. Look at this. You know what happened here? These things were painted, heavy paint. Somebody took, it looked like a pocket knife, and scraped the paint off and just buggered up the finish on these things. And don't worry about my cat sitting here. That's Moto, discovered on the air filter of a vehicle one cold and wintry day when she was about 4 inches long. Anyway, so I'm putting them in because A, I know they're early, the 1860s. B, I'm almost certain they're silver plated, which is not unusual for that, for stuff from the 1860s. But who's silver plating their hardware? It was almost never done later on in the 19th century. I mean, some, but not very much. But in the 60s, they were doing it. Okay, so like I say, I pull these out of the box, I look at them, I say, hey, those are something. Then I take photos of them. As I'm taking photos, I'm looking at them. Then I process the photos. I'm looking at them again through my computer. I'm saying to myself, man, these things are a mess. Do I really want to put them in the sale? And then finally, I go to actually posting up that lot number. So then I have to actually look at them closely. And man, look what I find here. Look at this deal. Can you see this? Look at this. This is a cast iron rosette. All right? Cast iron. Then they took, I mean, not lightweight, I mean some heavy duty copper, like a sheathing. And they somehow wrapped this cast iron rosette in this copper sheathing. Well, okay, who's doing that? And then they silver plated the brass. Well, now who's doing that? Okay? Because think about it. Hey, just think about doing that. How would you apply that over there? Then think about, how do you crimp down the edge of that heavy copper around the edge of the cast iron, and not, and how do you do that around the circumference and not make it all crinkly? Because you can't wrap square edges around a round circumference. And you can see, I mean, I don't know, maybe they did it by hand, but I mean, look at that. Who's doing this? And then not only did they have to wrap it around the edge of this rosette, they also had to wrap it down on the inside of the ferrule there. So whereas, yeah, you could probably do this by hand somehow. I don't know how you would do that by hand. You'd have to put it on some kind of machine that, that turned it somehow. Anyway, folks, these guys are history hardware. And somebody buggered them up, but at the same time. And then the other thing, I mentioned this before, these little pointy things here, they were designed, you see other early cast iron rosettes, but they're real pointed. I've never seen them flat like that. Those went into the door to keep the rosette from turning. I guess you kind of pound it into the door. I mean, I don't know. Guess it would work, kind of. But I'm just intrigued by the fact that this thing is actually sheathed in copper and then silver plated. So anyway, if you go online, auctions.luludesign.com, and this is lot number, I don't know, 160. It's near the end of the sale. And I mention there, I go through this whole thing in the description. And I mentioned at the end, these, if you look at those, right, those have to be the least interesting items in the whole sale, but they deserve and they do receive the longest description. I don't know how long, it's a long description because I just wrote out pretty much everything I just discussed. But this is worth a little video all on its own, just because it's so interesting, and also, the little lesson about the antiques business. I mean, you learn something new every day. You've never seen it all, and every time you look at something carefully, something of interest, I mean, oftentimes, hey, you find something you missed before. So, that's the fun, that's the excitement. What's the value? That's the other one of those antique truths. You find something really rare and special, and it's rare and special. And guess what? You're the only person in the whole world that gives a rat's ass. So, I put these in. Wait till you see what price I put them at. I'm not giving them away. But we'll see. Somebody ought to step up to the plate here. All right, folks. There you go. You never know what you're looking at. You never know what you might find. That's why we love the old. That's why we love the old stuff. That's why we keep singing the old ones.